I have 16-year-old son. He thinks he is always right and better than others. And he doesn't think about the other's feeling. That's what I worried about him most. He doesn't listen to me, of course, his brother, uncle, his father. Even he doesn't listen to the doctors and the teachers and the coaches. So as a result, he learns the lessons in a very hard way, always. And he has trouble a lot with others. When he gets into trouble, he makes the small thing into the big trouble. And then he blames others. And I try to understand him because I'm the one gave birth my son. But sometimes it's really hard for me to understand. How can I have my mindset so we can have a good relationship until he turns 18 and go to college?
몇 살이라 그랬죠?
How old was he?
16.
16살.
16살. 뭐 2년만 기다리면 되네요.
So you only have to wait 2 more years.
너무 평생 사는 경우도 있는데 2년 정도는 뭐 큰 어려움
I
아닙니까?
know it's hard, but 2 years is not a big deal.
주로 어떻게 말썽을 일으킵니까?
So how does he get in trouble?
어떻게 말? 그러니까 last night, he had like a math homework, so he asked my husband to help him. But you know, the math is not negotiable. Math is there's only one thing which is right. So my husband tried to teach him the it was algebra too. And then he always think the other, like his answer is right, but math is not negotiable. Math is, one is right, the others are wrong. But he always think he's right until he saw the answer sheet.
그게 왜 갈등의 원인이 됩니까?
Why is that a source of conflict?
아이가 아버지에게 먼저 요청을 했습니까?
So did the
안
son
그러면 아버지가 아이에게 가르쳐 줬습니까?
did the son ask your husband for help?
My son asked my husband.
네, 그러면 얘기해 주면 되잖아요.
Then you can tell your son.
안 받아들이면 그래 알았다 그러면 되죠.
Then if the son disagrees with the answer, you just say okay.
But it always ended up with yelling and banging the door.
그거는 아들만 문제는 아니잖아요.
So that's not just a problem with your son, right?
아버지가 아이의 성격이 그렇다는 걸 알면 그래 그러면 네 좋을 대로 해라 하면 되죠.
If the father knows, your son's personality, then your father can just step back and say, okay, if that's what you think.
이것이 남을 해친 건 아니잖아요.
Because your son didn't hurt anybody.
남을 해친 것은 우리가 타인에게 피해가 가니까 조절을 해야 되지만은 자기가 자기한테 손해 보겠다는데 그게 뭐 문제예요.
If the son is hurting somebody else, then you do have to modulate his behavior. But if he chooses, to cause damage to himself or to cause more problems for himself, that's not a huge problem.
이게 처음이라면 몰라서 그럴 수가 있습니다.
Maybe if this is the first time of him acting out, then you might not know.
근데 아이의 성격이 이렇다는 걸 알잖아요.
But you already know his personality.
오케이, 그러면 너 의견도 일리가 있다.
Then you just say, okay, if that's what you think.
그러면 내일 학교 가서 선생님하고 검사 받아보자.
Then, see if you're right. Go to the teacher tomorrow, see if you're right.
그럼 내일 아침에 내일 결론 날 일을 꼭 오늘 결론 내야 됩니까?
So basically, why do you have to prove that he is wrong tonight when he's going to know he's going to be wrong tomorrow?
하루만 기다리면 저절로 해결이 되는데.
Because it resolves itself just waiting one more day.
근데 일단은 성격적인 장애가 있을 수 있으니까 심리치료나 정신과 치료가 필요하고요.
So in a way, he might actually have some personality disorder, so you might want to seek professional help just to consult.
근데 약간 이런 정신적인 그러니까 어떤 정통의 기준에서 볼 때 약간 정신적인 질환이 있는 게 꼭 나쁘다고만 볼 수는 없습니다.
But in a way, just because he's an outlier, he doesn't kind of adhere to the standard behavior of a child at his age, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
왜냐하면 수학은 답이 있다 이 생각도 고정관념입니다.
So in a way, you think there's only one answer to an algebra equation. That's also a preconception.
여러분들 수학에서 유클리드 기하학이라는 게 있지 않습니까?
You know, we all know about Euclid's geometry, right?
두 점 사이의 최단 거리는 하나밖에 걸 수 없다.
And we think the shortest line, shortest path between 2 points is the straight line.
그러나 그건 평면일 때의 얘기입니다.
But that assumes a flat surface, right?
그만 공간이 휘어진다면
But if you're in a sphere, you're in a curve,
여러 개를 걸 수 있다가 됩니다.
then there are multiple answers.
삼각형의 내각벽은 180도다.
You say, the addition, the sum of all angles on a triangle is 180.
그것도 평면인 경우의 예입니다.
That also applies to a flat surface.
휘어진다면 다릅니다.
If that's
안으로 휘어졌냐 밖으로 휘어졌냐에 따라서 180도가 넘을 수도 있고 안 될 수도 있습니다.
But if the triangle is lying on a sphere, whether it's convex or concave, it's really different.
이것을 우리가 비유클리드 기하학이라 그러잖아요.
It's the non-Euclidean geometry.
그런 오늘 새로운 시대에는 그런 좀 고정관념을 깨뜨리는 그런 사고도 어쩌면 필요합니다.
Maybe in this world and age, we need somebody who actually thinks and outside that box.
특정한 사람의 이름을 거론하기가 제가 공개적인 자리에서 좀 어렵. 것 같은 사람도 성격적으로 보면 좀 별로 좀 이해하기 어려운 사람이에요.
For example, just I don't want to bring up a public figure, but somebody like Musk, right? From a personality perspective, it's kind of hard to understand the guy.
그리고 엉뚱한 일을 하잖아요.
And he just says and does weird things.
엉뚱한 것이 지금 필요할 때도 있어요.
But maybe sometimes the doing weird things is actually helpful.
그래서 그걸 꼭 나쁘게만 볼 건 아닙니다.
So I don't think you should consider your son's behavior as just bad behavior.
예수님이나 부처님도 그 당시엔 다 엉뚱한 사람이었어요.
In a way, even Jesus or Buddha in their own lifetimes were considered outliers, right? They were weirds.
가족들이나
weirdos.
친구들은 도저히 이해할 수가 없는 사람.
Their close ones, their loved ones, families and friends probably had no way to understand their behavior.
저는 과학자가 되는 게 꿈이었습니다.
My dream as a child was to become a scientist.
그래서 난 종교를 싫어했습니다.
I hated religions
종교인들 얘기하는 거 보면 허황한 얘기, 전혀 맞지도 않는 얘기를 합니다.
because when I heard the clergy speak, it was all some things that I could not understand. It was all fantastic.
또 종교인이 돼버렸어요.
Then I ended up being a clergy myself.
그것도 고등학교 1학년 때.
It's in high school.
그러니까 내 친구나 선생님은 다 내가 문제아가 된 거예요.
So from my early childhood friends' perspective or teachers' perspective, I became this weird outlier.
우리 어머니 입장에서는 어떻게 했어요?
How about my mother? What do you think she thought?
그러니까 그걸 첫째는 정신적인 질환이라면 좀 치료가 필요하고 반드시 그런 엉뚱하다고 해서 반드시 나쁘다 이렇게 단정적으로 볼 건 아닙니다.
So first and foremost, you might want to seek professional opinion for your son's behavior, but at the same time, just because he's an outlier, he doesn't behave exactly like other children, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing.
이 창조적 사고를 가지려면 정답이 없는 공부를 해야 합니다.
Because if you want to be creative, you have to explore questions without answers.
어떤 생각도 할 수 있는 것을 용인해야 합니다.
Because you have to be able to handle any kind of thought.
My son, he's been seeing psychiatrist since he was 10. He's diagnosed with ADHD and social communication disorder. So he's been seeing therapist for 4 years. But since last year, he refused to take the medication. He refused to seeing the therapist. Even the doctors say he has very narrow tunnel view. He sees everything black and white. So it is so hard for me to teach him, everybody can have their opinion. We should respect the others. It's so hard for me to teach him.
그런 걸 가르치면 안 되죠.
So those things you can't really teach.
그런 걸 부정하는데 그걸 가르치면 어떡합니까?
Because you can't teach something that he denies explicitly.
두 가지 길이 있습니다.
So there are two paths for you.
일단은 반대를 하지 말고 그냥 그럴 수도 있다, 오케이, 그럴 수도 있다 하고 수용하고 지켜보는 겁니다.
So just say, instead of just opposing what he says or denying what he says, just says, okay, that could be it, that could happen, and just observe how he acts.
그러면 우리의 관계는 나빠지지 않습니다.
Then your relationship with him is going to get better.
그러니까 우리의 잣대를 더 이상 들이대지 말라는 겁니다.
So what I'm trying to say is that do not insist upon your standard upon him.
그러다가 뭐 자연적으로 이렇게 좋아질 수도 있습니다.
Then maybe he gets better naturally,
또 악화될 수도 있습니다.
or he might get worse.
악화돼서 이제 조금 폭력을 행사하거나 어떤 이상한 행동을 하게 되면 이제 강제 입원이 가능합니다.
And if he gets worse, and if he becomes more violent, for example, or if he starts to hurt himself, then forced hospitalization becomes an option.
악화된 것이 나쁜 게 아닙니다.
So in that sense, getting worse is not a bad thing,
입원을 할 수 있는 조건이 되기 때문에.
because now you have fulfilled the conditions so they can be hospitalized.
이 현재 이 정도에서 남에게 특별한 피해를 주지 않는 선에서 강제 입원은 안 됩니다.
Because in this current state, you can't really hospitalize him,
왜냐하면 인권이라는 것이 있기 때문에.
because it's his human right.
그래서 제가 볼 때는 그냥 지켜보는 게 필요하다 싶어요.
So I think for now, I think it's good for you to kind of step back and observe
부딪히지 말고
instead of being always in tension with him.
뭐 딴 사람하고 부딪히는 거야 어쩔 수 없지만은 나는 적어도 부딪힐 필요가 없다는 거예요.
If he gets into fights with somebody else, you can't really help that. But at least you don't have to kind of add to that.
어떤 경우에도 그럴 수도 있다는 거예요.
So whatever he says, even if you disagree, you say, okay, you might be right.
맞다 틀렸다고 접근하지 말고 그렇게 생각할 수도 있다.
So he's not wrong or right. It could be from his perspective, he could think that way.
그렇게 한 2년을 보내보시죠. 뭐.
And let's spend about 2 years like that.
그러고 악화되면 입원을 시키면 되고요.
And if it gets worse, then you can actually hospitalize him.
그리고 성인이 되면 이제 자기가 책임 안 지고 국가가 책임질 거예요. 문제가
But
생기면.
after he becomes adults, then it's no longer really your responsibility. It becomes ours, right? The society.
물론 부모로서는 뭐 마음의 고통이 있겠지만은
Of course, you will suffer mentally and emotionally as a parent.
그러나 그 자식에 집착하게 되면 자식도 힘들고 자기도 힘듭니다.
But if you're overly obsessed over your behavior of your son, then it brings about more suffering to you as well as your son.
자식의 삶은 자식의 삶이고 그런 자식을 또 부모도 행복하게 살 권리가 있다. 저는 이렇게 생각합니다.
So what I think is that your son's life is his own, and you as a parent to such a son also have the right to live happily.
성인이 되면 그 입원을 시키든 치료를 하든 이것은 객관적 평가가 이루어집니다.
So once he becomes an adult, whether he needs to be hospitalized or he needs, or if he improves, it's just subject to more of a standard observation, to standard diagnosis.
지금은 제일 중요한 거는 항상 그럴 수도 있다 하는 관점에서 바라보시면 좋겠습니다.
Because right now, I think the best attitude you can take to the situation is that he could be right, or he could be that way.
다른 사람에게 피해를 주는 어떤 상황이 된다면 그건 강제 입원을 시킬 수 있는 조건이 되니까 입원을 시켜야 합니다.
Unless then he starts acting out and hurting others. In that case, he could be hospitalized.
폭력적으로 이렇게 변해간다면 매우 유의해서 지켜보고 입원을 시켜야 합니다.
And if you see that he's trending more towards violence and acting out, then something that you need to observe closely and really get medical help involved.
그 시기를 놓치게 되면 다른 사람에게 피해를 주는 어떤 사건이 생겨날 수도 있으니까.
To make sure that he doesn't really act out in a way that commits something that's irreversible.
의사의 조언을 계속 이렇게 듣는 것이 필요합니다.
And I think you should continue consulting with medical professionals.
약을 먹지 않으면 의사가 어떤 조처를 취할 텐데 그냥 내버려 둡니까?
So, he refuses to take his medicine. Is the doctor okay with that?
He's over 16, so if he doesn't want to take a medication, the doctor cannot do anything.
아직 그 다른 사람에게 피해를 주는 행동은 아직 한 적이 없습니까?
Has he acted out to hurt others?
No.
네, 그러면 입원은 안 됩니다.
So then you can't hospitalize him.
그래서 조금 더 지켜보세요.
Yes, I think we just need to sit back and observe a little more.
네.